This is the 4K 60S Plus from Elgato. This little box captures your PS4, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, and PC gameplay through HDMI. I'll be honest, most of my review is going to be focused around this device's single best feature. With this, you can record directly to an SD card, no computer needed. Elgato teased this a few months ago during CES. Since then, I've been eager to get my hands on it, and hopefully you'll understand why. I remember spending many of my nights in college trying to find a way to record my gameplay. Not because I wanted to become a streamer or anything, but so I can talk immense amounts of trash to my friends.
Here.
No! How could you
There we
go!
The 4K 60S Plus is a new addition to Elgato's line of game capture devices. On the back, we have an HDMI in, HDMI out, USB-C for power, and another USB-C to connect to a computer. On the front, there's a 3.5mm line-in audio jack, record button, and an SD card slot. In the box, we have some documentation, one HDMI cable, two USB 3.0 Type-C to Type-A cables, and a power brick with various adapters. This thing is pretty straightforward to use. Here, I've got a PS4 Pro feeding into the 4K 60S Plus. Then, the 4K 60S Plus is feeding out video into my monitor. One thing to be aware of is that the recording resolution is limited to the resolution of the monitor. You can't force the SD card recording to be in 4K while the monitor displays a 1080p image. It's something that I ran into when I went from my 4K TV in my living room to my monitor in my office. I wasn't thinking and I just started capturing, and then when I went to go look at my footage, it was all in 1080p. It took me a second to realize what I had done, but it makes sense, and it's not a knock on the device, but something to be aware of. Once all the cables are plugged in and there is an image on the screen, put in an SD card. Once the red dot is solid, press the record button. To stop recording, simply press the record button again, and now that clip is saved. Simple. With the 4K 60S Plus, you can control the recording quality. So if you're expecting to play for a few hours straight, you can drop the bitrate down to make the file sizes smaller, so you can record for longer. If you're being a little bit more diligent and you just want to record a specific clip, or if you have a large SD card, you can keep your bitrate high and get a higher quality recording. The 4K 60S Plus will record up to 4K HDR at 60 FPS using H.265 encoding, or up to 4K non-HDR at 60 FPS using H.264 encoding. At the highest bitrate recording I could do, the quality looked great. On the lower bitrate settings, there were some artifacts during movement, but they would clear up once the movement stopped. The 4K 60S Plus uses a variable bitrate recording so that file sizes can vary depending on the complexity of what you're recording. Once my high-capacity SD card came in the mail, I just cranked my bitrate all the way up. For reference, I played about 5 to 6 hours and filled up about 2/3 of my 256GB SD card, capturing at 4K non-HDR at 60 FPS. My favorite thing about this product is actually the lack of user interface or required software. If you wanted to, you could simply throw in an SD card and it would start a capture. The 4K 60S Plus has a unique way of changing its recording settings. It uses a plain text document. In here, you can change things like encoding type, bitrate, and even the volume control of your line and mic. This document may look daunting at first, but it's actually really ingenious on how simple it is. This means that you can load up a few cards with your settings mirrored across all of them simply by copying over the text file into them. And on the topic of SD cards, let's talk about card format. You'll need to format the card in either a FAT32 or exFAT file format. Elgato recommends formatting it to an exFAT format because it'll give you one large continuous file, no matter how long the recording is. For me, I'm actually paranoid about very long recordings. I'd hate to be capturing for 6 hours only to find out that my file is corrupted. Not to mention the fact that now I have to search through 6 hours of footage for one specific clip I want to save. What I ended up using is the FAT32 file format. I do this because my file sizes are limited to 4 GB. So when I'm done playing, instead of having one long clip in my SD card, I see a bunch of smaller clips. The best part of this is that the 4K 60S Plus does a great job of starting a new recording without a single drop frame or audio hitch in between files. All I have to do is just butt the 2 clips together in my video editor, and boom, flawless playback. Let's talk about compatibility for a second. This is where this device actually has some shortcomings. You're limited to either 1080p or 4K pass-through and recording. If you've got a 1440p monitor, then you're only going to get a 1080p signal on it. I reached out to Elgato about this and they said that the encoder could do it, but it hasn't been validated, and that they have no plans to do so, which is a little disappointing. You might be thinking, that's okay, my 1080p monitor has a high refresh rate. Well, I got bad news for you too. This can only do 60 FPS capture. And to be fair, not many streaming services take video over 60 FPS, but my issue isn't that the recordings are limited to 60 FPS, but that the pass-through to the monitor is only limited to 60 FPS. The 4K 60S Plus only works with Windows PCs, but I just want to be clear, you can still edit videos captured on the SD card on your Mac. You just can't use OBS or Elgato's Game Capture for Mac to record or stream with the 4K 60S Plus. And on the note of streaming and recording, one limitation that has me a bit disappointed is that I can't stream and record on the SD card at the same time. I could record and stream in OBS, but I was really hoping to add that extra layer of redundancy by using the SD card as a backup recording. It's not a deal breaker by any means, but it would have been a cool feature to have. The 4K 60S Plus is geared toward the console gamer. The lack of high FPS and 1440p really cement that. Elgato's other offering, the 4K 60 Pro, is more in line with PC gamers since it supports those resolutions. But if you don't have a spare PCIe lane, or you want something more portable, then the 4K 60S Plus is a great alternative. The 4K 60S Plus costs $400, and that may sound a bit expensive, but for what you're getting, it's totally worth it. While it's not perfect, if you're on console and ready to break away from built-in broadcasting offerings of the PS4 and Xbox and increase your capture quality, then this is it. It's really going to take your YouTube channel or Twitch stream to the next level. So if you're ready to make that jump into pro-level content creation, this investment will be totally worth it.
Hey everybody, don't forget to wash your hands. The CDC recommends that you wash your hands for at least 20 seconds. Every time you come in from